Female athletes have filed a complaint with the federal government, I believe the Department of Education, over trans women competing in women's sports. They claim it's a violation of sex discrimination laws, a violation of Title IX. And this is where it all gets interesting. I frequently said, as you try to expand civil rights to more and more groups, you'll actually find there's a point at which some groups lose rights. For instance, this circumstance. Who is right? Should trans women have a right to be recognized under, say, the Equality Act to compete in women's sports, or do biological females have the protection under sex discrimination law? Which one do you protect? Because you can't protect both. As much as many people will try to argue that trans women don't have an advantage, they do. It doesn't mean they'll always win. But the science is fairly clear, and that's not my opinion. It comes from a trans woman scientist. Forgive me, I forget your name. But she has given statement after statement saying that trans women must undergo hormone replacement therapy. Otherwise, they have a massive advantage. And it is acknowledged by many people, because I've talked to the scientist about it, that even prenatal testosterone has a massive advantage in muscle development. And so it's a complicated issue, to say the least. So the question I will posit, I won't make a determination. It's up to you. Who should you protect? Should our civil rights law protect the trans women who want to compete as women, or protect biological females under sex discrimination law? We have this from adfmedia.org. This is for the Alliance for Defending Freedom for Faith and for Justice. They say, female athletes challenge Connecticut policy that abolishes girls-only sports. ADF complaint asks DOE to investigate discrimination and enforce Title IX protections. They say, Boston, Alliance for Defending Freedom attorneys representing teen track athletes Selena Soule and two other minor girls submitted a complaint Monday to the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights, asking it to investigate illegal discrimination against the Connecticut athletes. Ever since the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference adopted a policy that allows biological males who claim a female identity to compete in girls' athletic events, boys have consistently deprived Soule and the other female athletes of honors and opportunities to compete at elite levels. So this, there's a story that's a breakdown from the Daily Wire, which gets more to the core. And then we'll take a look at the actual complaint. But you may remember this woman. My understanding is that she came in a position in the race, displaced. She would have come in like 8th place or something, which would have qualified her for, like next level athletics and potentially a scholarship. Actually, let's just read it. I don't want to get the details wrong. From the Daily Wire. On Monday, the ADF attorneys representing Selena Soule and two other minor female track athletes submitted a complaint to the U.S. Department of Education. We read that. Per the CIAC policy, Soule was forced to compete against female-identifying biological males in a high-stakes track competition where two transgender sprinters beat the field, taking first and second place by significant margins. Soule landed in 8th place, missing an opportunity to compete in front of college coaches by 2 places. And that means if these two trans women didn't compete, she would have succeeded. Quote, I am very happy for these athletes, and I fully support them for being true to themselves and having the courage to do what they believe in, Soule told Fox News host Laura Ingraham in February. But in athletics, it's an entirely different situation. It's scientifically proven that males are built to be physically stronger than females. It's unfair to put someone who is biologically male who has not undergone anything in terms of hormone therapy against cisgender girls. This is true, and there is an actual physicist, a scientist who is a trans woman who agrees that far. There are people who would argue it doesn't matter even if they do undergo hormone replacement therapy. I don't want to misquote Joe Rogan, but there was a segment he did where he talked about bigger hands, bigger joints, more striking power, on average taller. So what I try to explain to people when it comes to this issue, because I see a lot of, Twitterati leftists saying, oh, there's no advantages. And there was one thread by a trans writer saying that one of these trans athletes didn't even win, got 6th place, and no one ever highlights the fact that these trans athletes don't often win. And that's a good point. And I will say, you're absolutely right, but it misses the actual argument. The argument isn't necessarily that we expect trans women to win every competition. It means that if you have 100 women, only, 6 of them will be considered the cream of the crop, the best of the best. If you take 100 men, and even with hormone replacement therapy, whatever, they compete against women, you will have a disproportionate amount of those men competing at higher levels against the women. You see what I'm trying to say? It's about averages. It's about the amount of work being done. There's one viral meme where it says, one particular individual was ranked to 200, then 390, then transitioned and became national record-breaking champion. It's not about winning first place. In this circumstance, if these two trans women who won even got 5th and 6th place, it means that this young woman, Sol, would have still been displaced. So it's an issue of the best in terms of women competing against average biological males who have transitioned to female, or I should say who have transitioned to woman because they're still not biologically female. And that's another really important distinction too. YouTube, I believe it was YouTube India tweeted about this. There's absolutely a distinction between gender and biological sex, at least according to academic, breakdown. Activists would have you believe that these transgender women are female. They're not. They are biological males who have transitioned to woman, not female. They will never be female. Okay, and that's not a bigoted statement. That's just, you can call them a woman. I'm totally down. I understand the argument. But we are literally dealing with, at its core, biological male versus biological female, regardless of the hormones you're taking. The reason that distinction is important is because civil rights law protects on the basis of sex. So I think there's a lot of activists who want to blur the line between gender and sex on purpose so that trans women would be granted similar protections. But the law is clear as of right now, unless there's a change. It is not my opinion. There is, it's not my opinion that biological sex is real. That's what I'm saying. But it is, in my opinion, an interesting argument to be made that trans women are biologically male, were born biologically male, and are just taking hormone therapy. To have them compete against biological females would be sex discrimination, I would argue. But we'll see what the Department of Education actually says. There's another quote. Throughout the 2018-19 track season, males consistently deprived the female athletes who are part of the complaint of dozens of medals, opportunities to compete at higher level, and the public recognition critical to college recruiting and scholarship opportunities, an ADF News release said. The complaint notes that CIAC's policy and its results directly violated the requirements of Title IX, a federal regulation designed to protect equal athletic opportunities for women and girls. Now, see, here's the interesting part. If you want to argue women and girls, you're going to get into a debate over whether or not it's for trans women because they believe trans women are women, or whether or not it's about biological sex. In fact, it says sex. The law says sex. So that's the important distinction. Girls deserve to compete on a level playing field, ADF legal counsel Christiana Holcomb said. Forcing female athletes to compete against boys is grossly unfair and destroys their athletic opportunities. Title IX was designed to eliminate discrimination against women in education and athletics, and women fought long and hard to earn the equal athletic opportunities that Title IX provides. Allowing boys to compete in girls' sports reverses nearly 50 years of advances for women under this law. We shouldn't force these young women to be spectators in their own sports. Selena and her fellow female athletes train countless hours to shave mere fractions of seconds off their race times. They put in that effort in hope of the personal satisfaction of victory, an opportunity to participate in state and regional meets, or a chance at a college scholarship. But girls competing against boys know the outcome before the race even starts. They can't win. Boys will always have physical advantages over girls. That's the reason we have women's sports. Well, that's true. You can make an argument about hormone replacement therapy, but for the time being, in this particular instance, my understanding is that the two trans women who won were not undergoing hormone replacement therapy. They were just completely biological males identifying as women and competing against women. So we have this is the complaint, and I'll just read a little bit of it because I don't want to. It's really long. But this is actually really interesting. They've been drafting this for a long time. They show the best high school indoor 800-meter times in 2019. They talk about physiological differences. I will link this in the description. I know I say that. I often forget. I'll link this in the description below so you can read through it yourself. But it's really, really interesting to show. Check this out. Table 9, 2017 CIAC Class M Women's Outdoor Track 200-meter results, May 30th, 2017. First place, a male. Andrea Yearwood's time was 0.3 of a second faster for Cromwell than Erica Mitchie, a female. So we can also see here that Andrea Yearwood, grade 9, was third place, falling behind two females. So again, I want to make sure I stress this position of the biological male, Andrea Yearwood, a trans woman, displaced one individual, right? So that's important. There's a lot to go through, which I don't think I'm going to because it's really, really long. But again, I'll link it. They go really, really. Look at this. Wow, this is insane. Look at this. Denied state championship, denied participation. Because of biological males competing as women, regardless of their position, these are biological females being displaced. So they're saying it's a civil rights violation. And this is what I've been saying. Look at Birmingham in the UK. You have Muslims arguing with the LGBT community. Which marginalized group are you going to protect? And now they're fighting with each other. In fact, the Muslim community was chanting actually like anti-LGBT things, and it caused a controversy. You can't protect everybody because not everybody agrees with each other. So I don't know what the solution is. I certainly want to make sure people are protected, but at a certain point, these lines start to break down. Look at these women who are denied championships or participation. It's really, really interesting stuff. So I'll just read the beginning of the complaint, and then we'll wrap it up. They say, "To whom it may concern, we submit this complaint on behalf of minor Selena Soul, on behalf of minor second complainant and third complainant, a minor, because the complainants are minors and because they fear retaliation. We respectfully request that the OCR treat their identities as confidential to the extent consistent with conducting a thorough investigation of the allegations contained in this complaint in the attached Exhibit A, discrimination complaint form." This is where things start to get really interesting because we're going to have to see who the left sides with. Now, naturally, you'll see conservatives will defend the biological females. You will see moderate liberals absolutely defending biological females. People like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's he's like relatively far left. He's like, I think he's in like a Bernie Sanders camp. He's very pro-UBI. But Joe Rogan is very much in favor of defending biological females. You have, radical feminists, gender critical, they call themselves, who would side with the females. But then you have intersectional feminists, of which majority of the mainstream would side with the trans women. Which left is the one you agree with? And this is why, I think it's an important distinction then when you talk about the left and the right. You'll see progressives trying to insinuate I'm not on the left. Well, certainly not in a tribal sense. I'm not on the right either. I don't care for your tribes. But look at this issue. Which left do I fall into? There's not just one anymore. It's fractured. While majority of Democrats want moderate policy, there's still a large group that wants progressive policy. And that's according to Gallup and Pew. I cite them very often. I would probably fall into the defense of biological females because it is a protected category. Women's athletics are meant to protect biologically female individuals. I have no problem with working out a solution. Perhaps there's like a transgender category. I honestly don't know. I certainly want to make sure the rights of trans individuals are protected. They don't face discrimination. But it is particularly different. It's not the same thing. A trans woman is not the same thing as a biological female. While we want to protect the civil rights of everyone, this isn't the way you do it, because now you're infringing on the rights of the females. So you're gonna have, I don't know. Hey man, civics, right? We are. It's kind of exciting and it's kind of cool to see these conversations, because these are new conversations and new developments in civic policy that we're going to see developed. And in 50 years, we'll know exactly what we will or won't do. And there will be a strong opinion in our culture on what the results of this battle was. I don't know what it'll be, but I'll leave it there. I will make sure to link this in the description below so you can read it. Stick around. Next video will be at 4 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/Timcast. The arrangement on the podcast is usually different. So so thanks for hanging out. I'll see you in the next story.